and we are underway at 7 p.m. I'd like to welcome you to this regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. Time snuck up on me, but since we've started the agenda, if you would, please silence your phones or vibrate them or whatever you need to do to keep them from ringing. We'd certainly appreciate it. And getting started on our agenda, our invocation will be first up, and Councilmember Villanueva is assigned that duty tonight, and then we have the pledges to the Texas and American flags. So if you would, please stand for the invocation and pledges.
Heavenly Father, we gather here tonight to worship you and give thanks. We appreciate the gifts bestowed on each and every one in attendance tonight and pray for peace and good health. Let us give thanks to such a generous and loving God for life and abundant blessings. Special prayers go out tonight for the Adair family. May God bless his family and friends forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, next up we have a proclamation, and this is for municipal court. And by golly, we have all of our, well, we have 2/3 of our court clerks here. Moses couldn't make it? Okay. That's okay. So if y'all want to come up front. Right here. Pull the tape loose. Before I do the proclamation, I'd like to just say a few words about our staff. Our court clerk, Andrea Goff, has been with us for 6 years and has worked her way up to where she's in charge of all the court proceedings. And as you'll hear in this, there are 937 municipal courts in Texas. And so it's a pretty close-knit community. There are basic levels of court clerks. And Andrea gave me the information, and I wanted to pass it along to you guys and anyone that might watch this video. But there are certifications for these different levels of court clerks. And the first one is a level 1. And of course, that's the first level you reach. And there's 678 level 1 certified court clerks in Texas. Then you have 533 level 2 clerks and only 80 level 1. Andrea has completed all of her studies for the level 1, and she's trying to be the 81st. She'll be taking her test, I'm assuming sometime the end of this year. It evidently is a very hard test to pass. That's probably why there's only 80 of them around. But we wish her luck, and we encourage her in her advancement through here. But that is the highest certification they can get. And Yolanda, who's been with us 2 years, and she actually was with us 3 years before this, so this is her second tour in Helotes. Her husband was transferred to Germany, and they were there for 3 years. Then when she came back here, she joined us again, and she's working toward her level 1 certification, so congratulations to both of you. Let me read this. Says proclamation Municipal Court Week, November 6th through 10th, 2017. Whereas the City of Helotes Municipal Court, one of 937 municipal courts in Texas, was established on May 27th, 1982, and serves as the local justice center for the enforcement of local ordinances and fine-only state offenses, AKA traffic tickets, that protect the peace and dignity of our community. And whereas municipal courts have more personal contact with people than all other Texas courts combined, and public impression of the entire Texas judicial system is largely dependent upon the public's experience in the municipal courts. And whereas municipal judges, clerks, and court support personnel have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and immortality, rendering equal service to all, and continually strive to improve the administration of justice through participation in judicial educational programs, seminars, and workshops. Now, therefore, I, Thomas A. Schoolcraft, on behalf of the members of the City Council, and by the virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Helotes, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of November 6th through 10th as Municipal Court Week, and recognize and commend our municipal judges, our court clerks, bailiffs, and other court support personnel for the exemplary services they perform, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused this seal to be affixed. I would like to mention too, the missing man here is Moses Gatan, and he's been with us since June, and Andrea says he's in December going to be going to municipal court or municipal clerk boot camp. I'm not sure what they do in municipal court boot camp, but it sounds ominous, but I think he'll make it. He's an Aggie, so he should do fine. And again, congratulations. Thank you. Look at the camera. Got us? You still trying to figure it out, Frank?
He's like, where's the button again?
Yolanda, thank you. We're so glad to have both of them. And I will say, they work. I forgot to look up and have Andrea look it up, but they go through a lot of traffic citations and collecting the money and having warrants issued. Today they had 3 jury trials that took place here, and it's just a really, I think it's an interesting job, and they seem to really love it. Heck, you got to go to boot camp to qualify, so what the heck. But anyway, again, we're so glad to have you both. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, next up on our agenda is our open session, or citizens to be heard. We have one speaker that signed up to speak, Colleen Miller. Colleen, if you would, please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, tell us your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes to say what you want to say.
Hello, my name's Colleen Miller. I own the Helotes Creek Bed and Breakfast. I'm at 14359 Old Bandera Road, number 3A. The reason that I'm here tonight is because I recently opened the bed and breakfast in Old Town Helotes, and I did print out some things where there are many, many people in the Helotes area and in Helotes that are doing the very same thing I'm doing. I rent 1 unit. There's a 7% hotel motel tax affixed with rentals in Helotes. However, I'm the only one that will be paying that. All of the many, many that I printed lists of are not paying that. Also, I wanted to also bring up the fact that on the very last page is a list of what that 7% is earmarked for. I looked through the list, and to my knowledge, we don't have any of those items in Helotes at this point in time. That is the reason for my asking for an abatement on the hotel tax until I am not the only one paying this 7% tax.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is our consent agenda. Tonight we have items 4 through 10. The objective of a consent agenda is to handle fairly routine matters. They're determined to be routine by not only me, but the staff. And they're brought to the council as a group because it just adds to our efficiency. They're intended to be approved with one motion and one second. However, any council member has the opportunity and privilege of asking a question concerning any of the items. If we can answer that question fairly quickly and simply, we'll do it that way. Otherwise, they can ask to have an item pulled for full discussion with the individual items later in the agenda. So that being said, I would ask of the council members that are here, are there any questions or requests to pull any of the items 4 through 10?
Mayor, I had a question, quick question.
Okay.
On item 8, the approval of the traffic impact analysis, well, Byron told us that he approved it, but what I don't understand, I mean, what he's approving is that TxDOT is requiring a right turn deceleration auxiliary lane. That's TxDOT's highway. We're approving what TxDOT is telling them to do? I don't know, can we actually do that?
Yeah, that's what
We have to do that?
That's what we've done it on many projects in the past, and yeah, that's the process.
Okay, but let me ask you, let's say we don't approve it. Just for FYI, say we don't approve it. We can tell TxDOT that,
Rick, you're up.
sorry, I'm sorry I threw this, I should have called you, Rick.
No, it's fine. Traffic impact analysis is required for every subdivision development within the city. Most of the developments don't require council approval because it's what they call a worksheet, which is a simple calculation that it's not going to impact traffic flow on a major highway. This is a larger development, and so TxDOT is requiring a decel lane on Bandera Road. If you did not approve it, and there was a reason for not approving it, then the developer would have to incorporate those amendments in addition to the decel lane into their development.
So in other words, if council would have some additional requirements on top of the TxDOT requirements, then those would be addressed by the developer.
Yes, we couldn't tell TxDOT
Okay,
not to
that's my
require-
question. I mean, we can't tell TxDOT, no, we don't want a deceleration lane there.
Well, you could, but they'd probably ignore you.
What, if you
I get ignored all the
if
time.
you actually flip it and TxDOT said that a deceleration lane was not required,
Mm-hmm.
but the city wanted to enforce it nonetheless, you could.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. So again, are there any additional questions on items 4 through 10 or request to pull? No questions or request to pull being heard, we'll call the question. We look for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 4 through 10.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 4 through 10 as written.
Okay, we have a motion from Fredericks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Villanueva. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda items 4 through 10, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. That takes us to item number 11. Which is a presentation of our proposed street maintenance plan for actually fiscal year and calendar year 2018, fiscal year ending 2018. And we have Josh Mayer, our Public Works Supervisor, that put this together. And He'll talk about product, he'll talk about locations and sizes. Take it away, Josh.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council, for allowing me to present this to you this evening. Basically, what we have here is a short version of, and a quick explanation, hopefully, of what we're recommending do for 2018 in regards to our street maintenance program. Real quick, when we get started here, let's see here, come on.
I believe it's to the left and right. Up, down.
Okay.
Down.
City Administrator, everybody, that's what he does every day. Thank you. All right.
You hope.
Clearly, I didn't do a good job because I should have told you about that before the
Okay,
meeting.
here we go. Okay, so real quick, we'll just go over a few housekeeping items so that as we go through this, you kind of know what we're talking about. This first slide here, we're just going to kind of go over the pavement condition index and what it is. Basically, it's a numerical index between 0 and 100, which indicates the general condition of the pavement itself. We typically refer to that as the PCI. Nope, wrong button. There we go. What we see on this slide here is activities, and activities are different maintenance techniques that we do on the street segment itself. The next line is our impact, and basically the impact is the amount of impact that street activity will have to the street we're assigning it to. And then we have our unit of measure. There's 3 different types of units of measure. We have a percentage increase on current PCI. So as an example, if a street was scored at a 50 on the scale from 0 to 100, and we did a edge of road chip seal edge of road repair on it, it would increase that OCI by 5%, moving the score to 52.5. It's not an increase of a total of 5%, it's an increase of 5% to whatever your pavement condition index score is. The next unit of measure that we use is exact PCI, this absolute here. And basically what we're doing is when we go in and do a major work on a roadway, such as mill and overlay, most of these are overlays or mill and overlays, we're moving the street to an absolute score regardless of what the pre-existing condition index of it was. And then we have a PCI increase to existing asset score. That's what we call a relative increase. We don't really use relative increase because we're trying to keep apples to apples. So we're either doing percentage or absolute. And the way we decided between the two is absolute on major reconstruction or major overlays, and percentage on things that are just basically doing surface treatments and one courses and things of that nature. So what you see on the left is basically every different street maintenance activity that we are currently using within the city. We don't use all of them every year, but they're the options that we have built into our operation management system in Scenario Builder Cartograph, which is how we come up with all these, this report that we're gonna go over. And this next slide here, it's basically the same thing, except it's a different condition category. This is talking about ride quality. So the first slide was talking about the pavement condition index. This is the ride quality, what it's like actually driving on the road. A score we give it based upon smoothness of ride. And then same units of measures with different impacts based upon the same list of maintenance activities. Any questions on any of the activities or impacts? I know y'all had that in the packet. If y'all reviewed them, we'll go over that now, or am I good to keep going?
I would just clarify that we're really, when we talk about pavement, we're looking at 2 different things. We're looking at its impact, when we look at how we're going to treat pavement, we're looking at 2 things. How something impacts or increases the PCI of pavement, and how it impacts ride quality. So that's why, in Cartograph, we're looking at only those 2 things, okay? How it affects ride quality and how it increases PCI.
And if you would, Josh, just take a couple of minutes and review Cartograph, and that, how we're using it, how beneficial it's been, and a little bit about what you guys learned at that workshop. And and what they said about how we're using Cartograph, just to kind of put a little frosting on the cake.
Oh, you're teeing me up, thank you.
There you go. I'm trying to help.
Yeah, appreciate that. So essentially, Cartograph is what Public Works use as our operation management system. We use it for all of our work order, work tracking, any requests that we get. But the real reason we use this system, it's basically an asset management system. So when you look at things you're maintaining out there, whether it's a bridge, a road, a culvert, whatever it may be, it's a way of tracking the work that we're doing. It's also a way of assigning condition indexes. Is this a good street, is it a bad street, right? And along with that, when we talk about the impacts, you're basically building curves. You're building a degradation curve and you're building an appreciation curve, degrading your asset or your pavement and appreciating that pavement condition index based upon work activities performed on that asset. This system is very complex. Every square inch of our street was surveyed and given a score, and we use that score in conjunction with the impacts that we went over to basically keep a running tally of what the condition index of our entire streets asset, our entire inventory and infrastructure of roads. We went to a technical seminar that went over a lot of different principles such as report building and scenario builder. Scenario builder is what we use to actually tell us what to do. So you program cost of activity in relation to the impact on the pavement condition index, and you run all those numbers and algorithms, and it basically tells you the best place to spend your money, how to spend your money, where to spend your money. In the national ranking for Cartograph, the city of Helotes scored in the highest level of performance for their operating matrix. They built a matrix basically saying, how do you use it? What are you using it for? Are you using every aspect of it? And what's the activity rate? And are you using it right? And they come up with a score. And when we were at the technical conference, they provided us that score. And we were in the upper percentile for that. There was no other matrix higher than us. So we scored very high in our effectiveness, our ability to use it, and our understanding of the product. And essentially, it's asset management. How do you know how good your roads are, and how do you know how much roads you got out there? Things like that.
Thanks.
Good to go? I hope I explained that right. I feel like I did, but we'll keep moving. So essentially, you take your pavement condition index, you take your ride category index, and you do a couple other things in it, in that number to get an overall condition index. The quick definition is the estimated overall condition of an asset is calculated by taking the asset's age, predicted life performance, inspections, and tasks performed on it. So every street we have an estimated life expectancy and we have an installation date. So if you build a road that's supposed to last you 50 years, you start at a score of 100, and in 50 years you're at a score of a 0. That's your degradation curve for the pavement. Then as you do work activities to it, you adjust that PCI based upon those impact values we went over, and you keep an accurate overall condition index of that road. And it's all performance-based type inspections and work tasks for that. So any questions on condition index? Now's your chance. Okay, so the next little slide I threw in here is just kind of an informative type slide. It's a new product that we're starting to use in the city. It's a product called Access. It's made by a company called Aragon, who's one of the leaders in the field of surface treatments, preventive maintenance techniques for streets. As a side point, this product is actually made right off of Braun Road, where Leslie Road and Braun Road intersect, that little industrial center right there. Aragon has a plant there, and they make this product Access in that plant. So it's a local product that is readily available to us, which is what makes it quite appealing. Yes, sir.
On this slide here, you're saying that the dry times are 15 to 45 minutes. Does that mean you can drive on them?
Yes, sir. Based upon the condition of the street, the application, and the temperatures and wind speed and all that thing, that's what they're telling us. 15 to 45 minutes open to traffic, ready to go. Really? 15 minutes meaning if it's dry, hot, and sunny. 45 minutes if it's cool, breezy, and maybe humid. Takes a little bit longer. Access is what's known as an emulsion, so it's a water-based product. So as it sits and cures, the water evaporates out of it. Once you get to that certain point of evaporation, it's cured and it's settled. So that's what they're basically telling you. The water they're using inside here will be gone in 15 to 45 minutes, and it's ready to go for traffic.
There were situations, although rare, where it could take up to an hour or two, though, as I recall.
Yeah.
But typically, these times, ideal conditions, that's what you're gonna have.
So real quick, like we were talking about, this is a mastic surface treatment. It's basically their sales pitch. It's giving us the durability that we want from a pavement maintenance product, and it's environmentally friendly, which means it sets up real quick. It's not running off into the side of the roads, getting in the grass and things like that. It's asphaltic emulsion with fine aggregate inside there. The aggregate is basically only put into the emulsion to help with skid resistance. Basically, you don't want to put just smooth rubber on the road, because then when it gets wet, cars will be sliding all over the place. So they install these fine aggregates and a catalyst in there for traction. And the main reason why we went with Axis is wheel pushing. This product is specially engineered to resist wheel pushing at low rates of speed, so parking lots where cars are not moving very fast and they're turning the wheels, this product will not be torn up from your existing pavement. And in suburban neighborhood streets, low speed limits, people coming in and out of their driveways, it's just a product that's specifically engineered for that type of vehicle movement.
John, this is just a layer that goes over the top of the street.
Yeah, this is basically
It doesn't
just,
fill in any, it doesn't fill any holes or anything.
it does not do any level up. It's basically a sealant. One of the primary functions you're doing with this is you're either using it to prevent aggregate loss and raveling, or you're doing it to prevent oxidation. Basically, the existing polymers and emulsions inside your asphalt decaying from weathering or traffic, and you're starting to, road gets brittle. You need the road to move, and this is just something that keeps that moisture, that the polymers and oils down with that aggregate, so it's a malleable surface and it doesn't get too hard, brittle, crack, all that good stuff.
Thank you.
This slide here kind of shows our scenario results, and basically what we have here is a scenario that was ran based upon cost and overall condition index, those numbers we were going over per plan year, and we ran it with best value so we can get the best bang for our buck. This scenario builder result is projected based upon estimates of cost and quantity. So basically, we have the dimensions of our street. We know what we've paid for the similar services in years past. You use those numbers to come up with a somewhat accurate and commonsensical estimate for cost and quantity. The year one cost, as you see here, is $335,000. Basically, when you run this scenario, all the streets are broke up into segments. Some segments may be recommended to be worked on in year one of the plan, and some segments of the same street may be recommended to be worked on year 2 or 3 of the plan. So what we did is combine all the streets that has segments recommended to be worked on in years 1, 2, or 3 into year 1 of the plan. It's basically a common sense way of looking at it. We don't want to go in and do half of, whatever road, Paragon Road, this year and do the other half next year. If we're going to go in and do one street, we want to make sure we're doing the entire street, not just the segments. So one of the key differences you're going to see year one estimated spending, that number is different than what we're actually estimating for fiscal year 2018. Like I said, that's based upon available dollars in the budget and the idea of trying to do complete streets and complete neighborhoods. No piecemeal. With the current revenue we get from the street maintenance sales tax, piecemeal is not needed. So we're going in with a complete street program. And basically what you see here is beginning overall condition index of a 68. That's the entire asset of streets for the whole city. And if we complete all these tasks, you can see what our ending OCI is going to be, getting up into the 80 range. The target OCI is basically where we said that's where we want our street inventory to be at. We want it to be scored at a 70. 50 would be average, so we're kind of shooting for an above average score for the city of Helotes.
I want to clarify something that we're recommending Axis. The reason that we included Axis in the presentation was because it's a new material that we're recommending that we use. There was other products. One was called Onyx as well. Onyx was more expensive, but the main reason that we decided to propose Axis was because Onyx took in excess of 24 hours to cure. So we would be having to close residential streets for 24 hours before traffic went on them, and we felt that that was unacceptable for residents coming in and out of their homes, obviously. The other, huh?
That was actually the HA5 we were looking at, that took 24 hours to cure.
HA5, but Onyx was a longer cure time, if I recall. The other thing that the reason that we're talking about access here is because, well, let me clarify. This scenario right here doesn't just look at the application of access. It's looking at the application of 1 and 2 course surface treatments, mill and overlay, all of that sort of stuff. So I don't want you to, before he continues on, thinking that we're only talking about putting access on streets. We will, as you will see, are talking about, in some cases, full reconstruction, and in some cases, 1 and 2 course surface treatments as well. So.
While you're talking about that, this is essentially a top coat, a sealer for the surface treatments that are on there. Twofold purpose: to add protection and longevity to the street and the maintenance procedure that we use, and also to keep aggregate in place, because this is actually going to coat the aggregate, and we won't have the loose aggregate that is common with a 1 or 2 course surface treatment. And would you also just highlight the color retention aspect of it? And if you're, or I can just tell you, a lot of the other products fade over time because of the sun and the weather, the elements. We were told specifically that there are projects that have used Axis anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe 7 years, I think. And the black color is still very vibrant. So we're not going to have the fading ideally, and that's one reason he'll mention the parking lot out front. We're going to be using this product here so we can actually see how it works. But the color retention was another big aspect of why we selected this product.
So we looked into a lot of different products. The Onyx that Rick was mentioning was one of the choices we were looking into. The reason why we did not go with Onyx, one of the main reasons, is Onyx has a higher level of aggregates mixed into the emulsion. So it takes a specialized piece of equipment to put it down on the surface. And from what we were able to find out through research is there's only 2 or 3 contractors in the whole state that have that piece of equipment. So it really limits the number of contractors you can use to get bids from. And then also it's more of a straightaway type product, whereas we're trying to get a product in our cul-de-sacs and things like that, and in our neighborhood streets that is real resistant to the pushing. And Axis is essentially the same formula as Onyx with less aggregate in it. So it holds up better to pushing, and it can be applied by any common seal coat applicator. Another product we were looking at was HA5. Obviously, that had a longer cure time, and it's a totally different product. And it's known as a pavement rejuvenator. And we just really, it's a really good product from what we've seen. It's just the cure times, not that, it's not conducive with opening the traffic soon. So that's kind of why we wrote it off.
Also very expensive.
It's also more expensive, yep. And then basically the reason why we looked into Axis, Onyx, and HA5 is because, I like to say it's because we were listening to the residents of Helotes. If you remember last year, we did 1 course surface treatment on Circle A and Bar X, and there was a few complaints, not a lot, but a few complaints of the rocks coming up in the road, and you can hear them hitting the wheel wells of the cars and things like that. So we kind of went back and talked about it and said, hey, well, what can we do to stop that? We obviously can't afford to put in a brand new asphalt road that you see on TxDOT, so what can we do to add to what we're doing that's still effective and will keep the residents happy? So that's one of the options of, you come in with the 1 course of seal coat, you come in with an Axis type product on top of it, and you don't have that driving down the road, rocks flinging up issue.
And also, Josh, correct me if I'm not right on this, but City of San Antonio, Bexar County, and TxDOT are using Axis for many of the same reasons you're mentioning here. It's mainly opening the traffic sooner, the longevity of it, and the way it holds up to traffic. So we're just kind of going to be one of the newer entities that are using the product.
There's actually access in San Antonio Ranch, the main entryway, if y'all ever wanted to just see what it looks like. There's access down in the main entryway of Wild Horse. And what we were kind of alluding to earlier, we're actually going to put access down on our parking lot here tomorrow, so we can get a feel for the product, see what it looks like, and see the application methods and see how that goes. And some of the products also have what they want to limit the amount of traffic they allow on it. Access is not one of those products. It's on major highways such as 35 and 281, and they're good for 60,000 cars a day. No wear and tear on the product, whereas like an HA5, some of the products we're looking at, they're like, well, we don't want more than 15,000 cars a day on it. So we went with something that we thought was more hardy, cheaper, more readily available in proximity to us. So that's kind of why it wound up being our option, of our seal coat of choice, so to speak. The next 3 or 4 slides are basically just the exact thing that we're proposing to do on the street, activity on the street, what street it is, and what that activity cost. So Old Scenic Loop, we're recommending a 2-course surface treatment plus access. One of the reasons where we're recommending access on some of these roads is due to low traffic volume. If you noticed on Circle A and Bar X, for those that travel those roads, the first 2 weeks, a lot of rocks flying up. 3 weeks and on, no rocks flying up. Everything's pretty much embedded into the emulsion. But that's because there's high traffic volumes. Lower traffic volumes, you're going to have loose aggregate longer times. So some of these roads, we're recommending access for just that fact, low traffic.
You didn't put access on Circle A, right?
No, sir.
Okay,
Yeah, that just, enough cars drove on it to where
okay.
everything got settled down. I won't go over these one by one, because I have some kind of conclusionary slides at the end that pretty much add all these numbers up for you. So basically, this was just put in here so you know what streets we're looking at. Some neighborhoods are complete neighborhoods, some neighborhoods are gonna be just certain streets. And you're gonna see a lot of one course, you're gonna see a lot of access, and there's also some mill and overlay for areas like Rainbow Ridge. There's some areas where we're just doing access because the streets are in relatively good shape. There's not a lot of degradation to the existing chip seal. So instead of going in there and one coursing that, we're going to just go in there and add a protectant layer on there so that we can keep the pavement viable moving forward.
Josh,
Yes, sir.
when you say Hunter's Ridge and Helotes Ranch Acres neighborhood, you're doing the whole neighborhood?
Yeah.
We're actually recommending doing the whole neighborhood of Beverly Hills, Helotes Ranch Acres, and Hunter's Ridge.
The whole
The
neighborhood?
entire neighborhood will be touched with this plan.
Okay.
Just so you know, this plan is basically touching 15.35 miles of roadway. That would be center line, so if you assumed everything was 2 lanes, you're looking at over 30 miles of road, fully rejuvenated this year. So real quick, these are the slides with the totals. There's Helotes Park Estates, where the cost to do the work, $155,000 for that neighborhood. We're recommending over 471 square feet of one course, 471,000 square feet of one course, and over 180,000 square feet of access or surface treatment up there. So some of those neighborhoods, some of those streets, we're doing one course but not coming back with access because we feel like there's enough traffic on those streets to help with that aggregate loss. And maybe that neighborhood's already expecting it, right? I'm just kidding. That was a joke. I'm just kidding. All right. Beverly Hills, we got one course, 30,000 square feet, and then the rest of the neighborhood's access. There's a couple of street segments in there in a low water crossing area that needs some work done to it, level up. It's got some alligatoring in it. So we're saying we're gonna one course those areas that are bad, and then we're gonna just go through the whole neighborhood and access everything that's in there, and all the streets will be aesthetically pleasing and sealed up for the next 3 to 5 years. We should be relatively have very little work to do in there. The other neighborhood, Evans Valley, we know there's only 3 roads in Evans Valley. It's 147,000 and some change worth of square footage in there. In that neighborhood, we're basically recommending a one-course surface treatment. Hunter's Ridge, $39,000. All we're doing in Hunter's Ridge is access. We, in the last 2 years, we crack filled that entire neighborhood, and we also did some mill and overlay at the entrance of that neighborhood. That was causing an issue for those residents. So once we go in here, that neighborhood will basically have brand-new streets, so to speak. And what we're having in there is a lot of oxidation. There's not a lot of cracking or potholing, but you can see from that picture, there's no oil. There's no live oil left in that asphalt. So we're basically recommending sealing that street before it gets any worse. The next area, the commercial areas, that's Leslie Road, Signal Hill, Rainbow Ridge, up in that area. And milling and overlaying the top portion from the intersection of Leslie Road by the gymnastic place and BMC and Millwork back to the city limits. That road is beyond surface treatment. It's at the point of needing full depth reconstruction. That's why we got the mill and overlay. And then we're planning on doing some level up work on Leslie Road, fixing the little bumps. It's in really good shape. But then coming back with that access on there and eventually restriping Leslie Road. Helotes Retch Anchors. This neighborhood, we crack filled it a couple years ago and really haven't been back in there since. And essentially, we're recommending going in there, one course surface treating the entire neighborhood, coming back with access, fixing all the bad spots, doing all the level up, repairing all this older patchwork, and getting a nice clean road surface throughout the entire neighborhood. And then the kind of streets that don't really fit in anywhere. One of the streets I want to point out, Scenic Loop. It's a small street. It's only 38,000 square feet. We're recommending 2-course surface treatment plus an access. The reason we're recommending that is, as you can see, the existing asphalt that's there is in really bad shape. It's the lowest scoring street in our inventory. The street only services a couple of houses, but it really has seen very little maintenance over the years, and it is bringing down the score of our entire network. So the reason why Cartograph, our scenario builder, is asking us to do work in here, because it's the lowest scoring street. We raise this up, we can raise the score of our entire network up, and the cost is pretty nominal. You see other street, Mountain View, very little traffic, 1-lane road, 1-course surface treatment. That's why we're recommending access with it. And then Saltillo Flat and Alta Loma, those are pretty much small little streets, low traffic volumes, but are in need of some updating, and that's why they're on there. And we made it to the last slide. There's our projected cost to do work activities on all 15.35 miles of road in the street maintenance plan. From my understanding, there's actually more money in the street maintenance fund, so this is a pretty conservative estimate, and it gives us room to maintain things that come up throughout the year or add a project or two on there if we choose to.
I think you mentioned at the beginning, but just to be sure everybody's clear, we are confident about the square footage because that's coming off of our Cartograph system, but the numbers are really just estimates based upon what we've done in the past. So this work will be put out for bids, and we'll know once the bids are all in what our cost will be, and we won't necessarily be doing it all at one time. It'll be spread out over this year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions for Josh on this or for Rick? They've worked really hard on this, and again, I think it was 2015 when we implemented Cartograph, wasn't it? The council approved the investment in Cartograph. They came down and they surveyed all the streets, did all the driving around and scoring the streets, and since then you guys have inputted all of the signs and other things that you refer to as assets. So it's been a long process, but this is the payoff, is that we can confidently go forward with the scores based upon all the information that we have from the initial survey plus what you guys have done. So it's thanks to the council and their confidence in our selection of Cartograph and now we're able to see the payoff. And I don't think anybody in Helotes would have ever thought that we could afford street work for $700,000 or more in 1 year. Typically, we've always had maybe $30,000 to $50,000 available to go into street repairs. So this is an exciting and going to be a very productive year if council approves this plan and we can go ahead with it. And we do have an action item on this to go ahead and approve this so that we can start preparing all the bid documents and everything. So we'll go with questions. Bert, you want to start off?
Yeah, so what you're saying, I'm a little confused, you just said it, but you're gonna do all this by the end of 2018?
We're gonna try. It shouldn't be that difficult. If we can get everything in order during the off-season, meaning winter, and be ready to go by paving season, spring, we have plenty of time to get this done.
Okay, and is all this contract work, is any of it gonna be done in-house?
We'll be doing some of the level up work in-house, and then all of one course and access application will be done through contracted labor. And that's pretty much everything we have recommended. The mill and overlay will be contracted. There's a potential that we could help with some of that, but we really don't have the equipment and things. So basically, we'll be just doing most of the level up work.
Yeah, no, we'll point out too that Josh and the crew that we have, as far as the Public Works Department, they're becoming good at what a Public Works Department is supposed to do. They've done fairly large areas of cutting the asphalt, pulling the base up, redoing everything, and putting new asphalt down, using the rollers and everything. So they're getting to be very proficient in this. And I know Josh is always proud of it because every once in a while he calls me to come look at it and take some pictures. So I think that we're really making great strides in our Public Works Department, and commend Josh and the guys for what they're doing. Any other questions?
The parking lot, what time are you gonna start tomorrow if the weather holds?
If the weather doesn't stop us and the wind doesn't stop us, we'll probably start actually applying the access probably around 9. They should be here around 7:30 or 8 to begin cleaning of sections, and then they'll have a crew come in applying while the other crew continues the cleaning.
And then we're also going to be restriping. Is that still for Saturday?
The striping will be done Saturday, latest Sunday, and the parking lot should be open, looking pretty and new by Monday.
Okay. Anything else? No. Alex, any questions?
Yes, I had two, actually, and one was with regard to the striping. So some of the roads that have striping, do these estimates include restriping in those areas?
These estimates only include the actual street maintenance activity, not the striping. We do have cost estimates on most of the areas that are going to require striping, like Leslie Road. There's a lot of striping in that area, but it's not actually part of this plan.
Okay. And those would, I presume, be bid out at the same time? and-
Well, we'll be bidding that and handling that like we did before when we did it.
Yeah, the second question I had was with regard to other existing construction, because some of these areas, in particular Evans Valley, has some construction going on in right now with the flood zone work area, and I'd be concerned that we would do this before they complete that, and then the big heavy trucks come in and destroy what we have, because as you said, a lot of this is designed for lighter traffic residential neighborhoods, and some of those streets will see some heavy-duty traffic.
Two kind of answers to that question. The Evans Valley and Diamond K, those projects are slated for next year, but they're also, the major work is going to be getting close to being completed by Bexar County on those areas, so we wouldn't really go in there and do those till it was done.
Right.
As far as the heavy traffic, the actual rock that we're speccing for our one-course surface treatment is one of the hardest, most hardy rocks you can have in a surface treatment, so it really not susceptible to heavy traffic as long as the subgrade is good, which it is in Helotes because it's all rock. We should be fine with heavy traffic on it.
Yeah, that's why we're waiting on Diamond K. The intersection at Bar X and Diamond K is part of that French Creek tributary flood control, so we're waiting for them to finish that reconstruction of those culverts before we do anything on
Although
Diamond
from
K.
a ride perspective, that's probably one of the worst.
Yeah, yeah.
Worst in the city.
And I've talked to some of the people down there, and they understand
happy.
that French Creek is, we're waiting on that before we do anything there.
That's all, thank you.
Ed? Ed?
No, I applaud you for all the hard work you put into this and identifying these problematic streets, and sounds like a good plan.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Can't do it without Rick and the mayor and y'all support, so it's a team.
Paul?
No, it's an aggressive plan, I like it. I think it'll add some aesthetic pleasing stuff to the city. So thanks.
Okay, well, we do have an action part on this, and that's to accept this plan and give us the go-ahead to proceed with the bid documents and getting all of that ready. So as Josh said, when the paving weather and season is upon us, we'll be ready to get started on this. And so are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, we'll call the question then. All in favor of approving the 2018 City of Helotes Street Maintenance Plan, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thanks, Josh. It was a good presentation.
You want to tell them that Bert made the motion, I'll second it then?
Huh?
Nobody made the motion.
Oh, yeah. So I asked for a vote, and I didn't have a motion or a second, so good call. I was just so excited about the street work. So, yeah, let's get a motion in a second, so
Okay.
let's go with that.
Can I just, what would the motion say?
You want to approve the 2018
I make a
street
motion
maintenance
that we
plan?
approve the 2018 City of Helotes Street Maintenance Plan.
Okay, we have a second, so we have a motion from Buys and a second from Blue. Okay, we have that housekeeping out of the way. We already have a vote, but I'll ask for it again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. So once again, Josh, congratulations. And now we get to the paperwork stage. Okay, next up is item number 12, discussion of an action on a request by Deborah Keepers for approval of a variance to the municipal sign ordinance. So I'll ask for a motion and a second on this item.
Mayor, I make a motion to discuss and take action on 12.
We have a motion from Buys. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Blue. So Bert, you're up.
Okay. I guess I agree with the P and Z's recommended for approval of this. The only thing that I know it seems like it's still a pole sign, but the only thing that I don't like is she says she wants to wait 24 months before putting up a monument sign. I would like to see that reduced to 18 months, and then I would like to know when that 18 months, if we went with 18 or 24, when would that start? You understand what I'm saying?
That would be up to you making your motion. It would start as of
That would
today.
have to be, if we approve this, it would have to include that in the motion, right?
Yeah, because that would be a stipulation of your motion.
All right. That's what I have to say about this.
Okay, so what you're saying is your motion would be to approve the variances proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission with the exception of using an 18-month
Right.
timeframe instead of 24?
Yes.
Okay. Alex?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was at the Planning and Zoning meeting, and I can tell you they really struggled with this, as they have with a number of other signs, and the fact that there are a variety of different things that do not comply. One, obviously, is the pole sign, and so their end result recommendation was was consistent, actually, with what they brought up in other pole signs that we have within our ETJ, and I think we might even have one in the city. And that was for the sign to really mimic a monument by just completely encasing in between the poles. And that's really what they were trying to accomplish and say, meet that requirement. The other thing that I would ask here is, we need to consider that the size of the sign is considerably larger than would normally be allowed a single-tenant monument sign too, because while most signs that are of this nature are two-sided, this one really is open-sided, so it's not exactly a back-to-back two-sided. So we would need to, if we approve it, and I'm in favor of the approval, I think we just need to make sure that we know that is another variance we're granting, and not just, because really it has a lot more face surface than a typical two-sided sign would have. P and Z did include in their recommendation a requirement for landscaping at the base. They didn't specify exactly what that landscaping would be. They also didn't specify that there had to be some sort of base other than the sign, which is also in conflict with our ordinance, because when you make a monument sign, you have to have an 18-inch base that then the sign above it stands. And all they recommended really was that they close it in with, I guess, plywood or some other substance to make it solid rather than look like a pole sign. I don't know, given the location of the sign, that I would feel obligated to require landscaping there, because there's no water there. There's nothing that, would not have any water there, and so I don't know how we could do that, especially if we're considering this to be done only for a short time period. And I think the question I would say is, if we're going to add that to there, which I agree with, we have to basically say that after a certain length of time, this sign comes down. Not just says it's only approved to a certain point, but this sign is approved and must be removed at a certain time, at which point then, if they choose to erect a more permanent sign, then it has to completely comply with all of the guidelines. If we approve this one, then they can come back and say, just extend it, and then we end up in an open-ended scenario. So I would think if we're gonna put a time limit on it, we need to be specific to say, at 18 months, the sign is removed, and then a new application can be put in for a new sign, rather than to modify this existing one. But I'm in favor of granting whatever variances are necessary to meet that, with the exception, I don't know that we need to require the landscaping in that particular location, and that we put something in there that says after whatever time period we come to, whether it's 18 or 24 months, that the sign be removed and then a new one be done. Hopefully by that time, the owner of the property will have a better understanding of what their plan is for that location, and then we'll have an idea that they want to put up some permanent sign that meets all of our requirements.
Thanks. I'm glad you brought up the no landscaping. I went out there today and looked at it, and it's just like it's a pasture, and I don't know that
Rocks and
landscaping would benefit anybody or anything, except maybe a stray deer that would come by that was looking for a different kind of munchie. Ed?
That's a good one. I'm in favor of granting the variance, but I too am concerned about that 24-month period of time. I mean, it just sounds like it's too open-ended, and we'd have to monitor that. Now, I guess it's not a problem, but still, we'd have to impose whatever restrictions or sign requirements at that time. I'm for granting them a shorter period of time in which to erect that monument sign, get away from that pole-looking sign. But other than that, I'm in favor of granting them the variance. It's probably the best way that sign can be visible from the street, that three-sided sign.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, the only question I had was what was gonna happen to that sign once this variance expired. So, I guess it can stay up unless we put the stipulation in that it has to come down after the
Yeah, and we'll,
18 or 24?
yeah, whatever you all decide. Bert's motion says 24 months.
No, 18.
I mean, yeah, 18 months. Bert, would you care to accept the amendment of omitting the need for landscaping?
Well, I was thinking about that too, not having the landscaping, because it's really out in the field. One thing I forgot to mention, P and Z also stated that they wanted the address on there. I think that should be,
That's per code.
Huh?
That
Yeah.
is per code.
okay, but there's no address on it now, I don't believe.
Right.
So make sure they know to put the address of the dental office there.
And the 18 months would start now, or first of the year, or what beginning date
I'd
do you
say
want?
As soon as if we vote for this, I'd say start it now.
Okay. So we'll look at, well, you could go 1st of November. That gives us a chance to notify them and make all this
Okay.
official. That's just a week.
That's a good plan.
That's a week
First-
out.
Yeah.
So we would make, the motion then would be to grant the variances, which would include enclosing the poles to hide the poles. Make the time frame 18 months, beginning November 1st, 2017. And at the end of the 18 months, the sign must come down. Is that agreeable? And be replaced by a monument sign. And that, at that time, the monument sign would have to be applied for and a permit issued. And then we're gonna,
As I say, if they want one, because
they want one.
the business manager was present and basically said they really have no idea whether they're going to sell half the property at
Oh,
all
that's
or
true.
not.
That's
And
true.
this sign may very well end up on a piece of property they don't own anymore, so.
Okay.
They don't have any idea what the use of that section of the property is gonna be
Right.
18 months.
So if they still own it,
Yeah.
and at 18 months, then they need to make a decision or at least pull that sign down. And that you're eliminating the need for landscaping. Okay? And adding the street,
Address.
street address.
Yep.
You all got that? Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, then, all in favor of granting the variance with the stipulations that we discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. The variance is granted with the amendments that council came up with and we put in the minutes. At the request of our city administrator and our attorneys, we're going to be pulling the next item. The attorneys decided there was some additional tweaking they'd like to do to it, and so we're waiting to have that received, and we'll look at that and do the tweaking we need to, and then we'll bring this back to you probably in November or December. And that takes us to item number 14, discussion and action on renaming Business Parkway to Adair Parkway. So if I can get a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take action on item 14 as written.
We have a motion for me and a waiver. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Fredericks. Okay, Ed, you're up.
Okay, thank you. So briefly, I just wanted to make this statement about our dear friend Stuart Adair. Back in 2013, when Walmart first opened, I had, just before that, I had the pleasure of meeting Stuart. And at that initial meeting, I could tell that Stuart was truly a man of character that took great pride in not only what he did, but also for what he was doing in the community here in this great city of Helotes. He could be readily seen greeting everyone that shopped at Walmart with a warm and welcoming smile. Stuart had a selfless nature and a generous heart. I can remember at the grand opening, on behalf of the Casa Helotes, we accepted a donation from Walmart, as other nonprofits did, and it was quite the celebration. He was very, very excited about it, and I know the city was as well. He was always willing to help those in need without question. Stuart was a dedicated husband to Odette and father to Brett. On August 1st, we lost a virtuous gentleman when Stuart passed away, but we can keep his legacy alive by memorializing his hard work and good deeds by renaming Business Parkway to Adair Parkway. That is my hope, and it is also the hope of many of Stuart's co-workers there at Walmart. Thank you.
Paul?
In addition to what Councilman Villanueva said, I just wanted to mention how the community was brought together to support Stuart, and how that galvanized this community at a time of need, and a lot of people came together for Stuart, and I think it's fitting to, and a privilege to, name this street after Stuart.
Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely agree. I met him when he was first coming to council, getting permission on it, and every time I would go to Walmart, I saw him doing all of the work. He was not above, even though he was the overall manager of the Walmart, he was not above stocking shelves and sweeping floors and doing everything along with that. And I know not only does that command our respect, but certainly of all of his employees, and I think this would be wonderful to do. I would hope that maybe we could have some ceremony associated with it as well to allow those who knew him to participate and at least be aware of the change, and maybe some unveiling or something.
Bart? Okay. While everything that was said about Stewart is more than correct, I have some questions about this. According to the agenda item request form, the financial cost is $750. I don't know where that came from. That wasn't, I don't have any idea where that came from. But I have some other questions. The mayor and I went and talked to every single one of the business owners at Business Parkway. Not a single one of them were told that this was happening. A couple of the business owners that I went over there and talked to, that we went and talked to, said that it's been a very bad summer for some of these guys over there, and they're kind of financially strapped. Doing something like this is going to cost them money. It's going to cost them money for new flyers, their website, Google, all that. They're going to have to change everything. And then more than one owner also said that that area over there is hard to find. And as far as doing Google Maps, it takes a long time for things to change. It doesn't just change overnight. The address just doesn't change overnight with those type of things. Like what you're saying is, everything you said about Stewart's right. There's no doubt about that. But we also have to take care of our businesses. I can see probably, what I would like to see is, first of all, I'd like to see this postponed. I'd like to hear more input from the business owners over there, or maybe doing a possible something like we did with Willie Nelson Drive over there by Floors, doing a memorial, but then that way the owners wouldn't have to change all their addresses. I think, to me, we need to do our homework before we do something like this. That's my recommendation. I would like to either postpone it or maybe look into doing some type of memorial drive for Stewart.
Okay. I too would like to just have some input on this. And I also agree with Ed on the character and impact that Stewart had. I remember meeting Stewart when he was named manager of Walmart, and he came in here and introduced himself to me, and we saw each other quite a bit, both before Walmart was started and then during the construction. And I remember going over there generally at least once a week and get a tour of what was happening. And then when it was finished and the trucks started delivering product, Stewart invited me over there, and we actually went back and saw the product coming off of the trucks and going on the conveyors, and he explained how it was all put in the store. He was very, very proud. He and I became pretty good friends. I never had a problem texting Stewart and reminding him movie night's coming, about a couple of gift cards, and he always gave us a couple of $25 gift cards for every movie. And he did really become as much of a Helotian as you can without actually being a citizen of Helotes. But even today, every time I go in Walmart, I think of Stewart. And it's an emotional thing for me, as it is for many people. But at times, you have to put emotions aside. And when I saw this agenda request, I was wondering, I always like to encourage backup material or background material, and I was disappointed that there wasn't any. And being a business owner for 41 years now, and having a retail business for many years, I understand the ups and downs of running a business, especially what they call a brick and mortar store, where you're just waiting for people to come through your front door and hopefully buy something or do business with you. And so I was concerned on an impact that this would have not only on the business owners from a financial standpoint, but from just a negative impact of their business. And so as Bert said, he and I went, and we didn't get to talk to everyone because some of the doors were locked. I have left messages for them, but I did have several call back that were very passionate. And I do have some emails. Selena, if you go ahead and just hand out each of those emails, I would like to read these. The first one is from Ken Kay, the owner of Children's Lighthouse down there at the end. I have mine. That's one for you, one for Rick, and then one for each of these guys. And Ken says, Mayor Schoolcraft, I am opposed to the renaming of Business Parkway. In years past, a business would have to spend a few $1,000s to reprint cards, flyers, advertising, vehicle graphics, checks, etc. They would also have to change their address with everyone they do business with. And this was a big concern to him because he just opened a bunch of accounts at Broadway Bank, and he moved there from Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union because he wanted to do business with a bank in Helotes. So he's just received all of his checks, everything that's involved in his accounting part is all brand new. Says with the internet and social media marketing, it is virtually impossible to remove an old address, or for that matter, any outdated information. A Google, Yahoo, Bing search will likely bring up an old address, which will then come up as address not found in a map or GPS search. In addition, disk-based GPS units found in nearly all newer cars will not show this new street name unless the updated disk is downloaded. This would be a severe hardship on the businesses located on Business Parkway. For us at Children's Lighthouse, Helotes, who have a 10-year internet history, a new street name would basically erase us from the internet, social media, and GPS units. It would hurt us financially in many ways. I have an email from Dan Stakely, the owner of Marco's Pizza. I think we've all been in and sample Marco's Pizza. It says, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your call today informing me of the upcoming street name change. I am concerned that no one spoke to me about this change and how it could affect my business. I realize that this is a small street that may not have many businesses, but something as small as a name change can have a huge impact on my company. I put out about 15,000 direct mail pieces each month in order to get the best price I need to order 4 months' worth of advertising at a time. What happens to the customers who get this piece but can't find my store on Google Maps? I have to order 20,000 menus at a time to get a good price. All of these menus have our current street name listed on them. My business cards and stationery will all have this address on them. Google Maps will need to be changed. All of my info on the website will have to be changed. All of my info with my lender will have to be changed. My contract with Marco's franchising will need to be changed. Half of my business is walk-in, dine-in, and carry-out. What happens to my sales if people can't find my location? Who pays for all the changes, legal and otherwise, that I will have to make? Who will reimburse me for lost sales? Please consider the small business owner before you make this change and how it will affect us. And then I have an email from the owner of Great Clips, a hair salon. It says, Mayor Schoolcraft, I am opposed to the renaming of Business Parkway. In years past, a business would have to spend a few $1,000s to reprint cards. Whoop, I've already read that one. This is the short one. This is, again, from Great Clips. Thank you for the heads up about the consideration of a name change for Business Parkway in Helotes. We have been operating a Great Clips hair salon on this street since September of 2014. A name change would adversely affect us. Costs would be incurred to change business licenses, business cards, advertising, and mobile apps. We hope the City Council can find another means to honor Mr. Adair. I recently went to the ribbon cutting for the new Academy of Massage Therapy Institute. that just opened in that building, and I talked to their general manager, and he brought up many of these same concerns. It's important for council to understand that a massage therapy academy, a hair salon, a nail salon, they all are highly regulated by the state of Texas. They all have licenses that they have to maintain. Those licenses have to be correct. The academy was very concerned because an address change so soon after opening puts up a red flag at the state. Right now there's a regulatory agency that oversees all of the massage therapy academies or institutes in the state of Texas, and there are dozens of them. That regulatory agency is on the way out, and they have a new regulatory agency that's going to be there from the state. The new regulatory agency is not enforcing anything yet, and the old regulatory agency will not give any type of clue as to how this would be handled. So they're very concerned that if a name is changed on the street and it doesn't match their license, they can be found out of compliance with the state and suffer fines. They're very concerned about the Google Map problem. I've heard, I don't know that much about Google Maps or how it works, but all of these folks do. They depend on Google Maps. And they say that Business Parkway is going to be in Google Maps forever. And if people call up Marcos or Great Clips or whatever, they're going to get an error message, typically, especially if Adair Parkway is not identified by Google Maps. So they're all very concerned about losing business, and a business owner does not want to lose business. They're all understanding of the purpose for this, but you must get the emotion out of it. As emotional as we want to be, there are businesses' livelihoods here. Lisa at Pinot's Palette is very concerned. She's had a rough year. She's looking for the next 3 months of the year to help get her out of a financial bind. She frankly said, I cannot afford to reprint all of my postcards, my business cards, my stationery, and have my website redone to change the address on it. And it goes on and on and on. I'm disappointed that nobody thought about talking to these businesses. I waited until yesterday to go see, just to give the maximum amount of time. And to me, if we're not compassionate and we don't respect our businesses and their ability to do business, and by doing something like this would jeopardize those businesses from doing business and keeping their businesses open, then that's shame on us. And I understand, I think that it's a wonderful gesture. However, there are many other ways to, if the council wants to honor Stewart, and I think it's a great idea, but keep in mind, we've been here for 36 years as a city. There have been hundreds of citizens who have contributed greatly to our city's well-being and where we are today. Some of them have passed. None of the street names have been changed to memorialize any of those citizens. And so this is more than a compassionate decision. This is a decision that needs to be taken heavily. Another thing, I call the post office. I did the legwork on this. And with the post office, we should, before authorizing a name change of a street, fill out a form for the USPS so that they can make sure there are no conflicting street names that would cause confusion. But they said, most importantly, you must put a form into Bear Metro 911, because it's important that Bear Metro 911 check their database and make sure that there are no street names that would cause confusion to emergency dispatchers and emergency responders. And there's no way that a street name should be changed without making sure that emergency responders will not have any confusion getting to an emergency call. So what I'm trying to point out is, it's great to feel good and try and do something good, but not if it costs people a lot of inconvenience. And I can tell you, we'll get more emails, and some of the people would like to have come down and spoken tonight, but there just wasn't enough time. They had soccer games, they had other things. But as Bert said, you can either decide tonight whether you want to impact these businesses in a negative way, or postpone the decision till later, and a lot of these businesses owners would like to come in and speak to it. So again, I commend Councilmember Villanueva for his efforts, but I would highly recommend that council find another way to do this, and as Councilmember Blue said, we can make it a big deal. We can make it a ceremony, put a plaque up or do something, but I believe that this street name change would be not the way to do it, simply because of the consideration we have to give to our business owners. So with that being said, Ed, we'll go back to you and go back around for discussion, and hopefully I've brought up some points that you guys had not thought about as far as how this is going to impact those many businesses that are on Business Parkway.
Well, I thought about the potential impact. However, the sign that I would like to see erected would simply go underneath the existing sign, so we don't have to impact the business owners. In other words, just like I-10 is dubbed McDermott Freeway, you didn't see USA go in and change their address. It's still whatever IH10. So let's not hit the panic button, everybody. De La Rosa Street is also dubbed as Hippo Garcia Drive. That was passed by the city of San Antonio's ordinance. You didn't have to change the stationery or Google Maps. And speaking of Google, I mean, some of these that are sound like they're really concerned about what's out there on their Google site. Great Clip says permanently closed. If they're so concerned about it, why wouldn't they remove the permanently closed thing on here? They're already telling the public and the world that they're already closed, so they've got to worry about taking care of their in-house business. Walmart, they forget Walmart is the main draw to that entire area. I seriously doubt that those folks or that strip center would have been built in absence of Walmart. So, you know, those folks really need to think about Walmart and the impact that Walmart has on their businesses. I guarantee you they would be there, you know, all hidden in that strip property there. But again, the Adair sign, if we could just put it below Business Parkway, we don't have to go to the post office. We don't have to change stationery. We don't have to, you know, cost these people this sums of money that they're saying it's going to cost them. I'm not proposing that. I'm not for hurting the business. I'm a business owner too. It's just a simple sign that we wish to erect. And the $750 thing on there came from Rick Schroeder, actually, who said he got the data from Josh Mayer. I didn't think a sign cost but a couple $100 tops. And of course, I made the offer to pay for it and install it, but $750 obviously wasn't revised on the agenda item. But it came back at, in an email to me at $25 to $50 range. Am I correct, Rick?
The 750, that was when I was under the assumption that y'all wanted to change Leslie Road to Adair Parkway, and I clarified that with Mr. Fredericks. But at that time, the agenda item request had already been signed off, and so we just continued it on the agenda. But yeah, it would be less than that now that we're talking about.
But you had revised it down to 25 to 50. That's what
I don't, is that correct?
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Well, the agenda item does say 750, so that's where the confusion came in. And that's a great idea. That's an idea that I had, and I think Bert alluded to it, but that's not what your agenda item says. You're wanting to rename it. However, I think it would be great to have a sign underneath the street sign, leaving the street Business Parkway, and put, in my mind, it would be Adair Memorial Parkway. It would be a nice sign. It would be attached to the street sign, but the street name would be changed. Here, your item says renaming Business Parkway Street to Adair Parkway.
I understand that, sir, but what I'm getting at is all of a sudden, you guys went and told them, and they're sending all these emails. I imagine you
well, if you
solicited,
wanted- if you
you wanted to solicit some negativity in this, you got it. and I understand that. Both of you orchestrated this. So as a
Take
compromise.
offense to this.
Yeah, you-
I take offense to this.
Let's hold
I don't
off,
care
hold
what you
off.
take. What, as a compromise, here and now, okay? I'm just suggesting, and it sounds like you're okay with it, let's put another sign just below it. I'll pay the fee, I'll install the thing, and let's make the Walmart family happy. That's all I'm asking for, okay? I didn't mean to go and stir it up. You guys obviously did, and it's exactly what I expected. But let's see if we can deal with that now instead of all this negativity.
Well-
Costing them tons of money.
Well, you're making some accusations that you shouldn't be making because.
I can say what I'd like, sir.
Yeah, you can.
All right.
And so can I.
Good.
The way your agenda item read, you were changing the name of the street, and to me, it's negligence not to go to the businesses and find out how they feel. The memorial sign was one option that I had. Bert mentioned it. You picked up on it. And that's a way that you're now changing it. So if you want to change your motion to leave Business Parkway, and have a sign underneath it that says Adair Parkway or Adair Memorial Parkway, then that's a whole different issue, and that's totally different from the way your agenda item read.
Okay, that's fine. As we can make adjustments on these motions, let's do that. I'd like to,
Okay.
but I would like to follow or honor their request, which is simply Adair Parkway.
Okay,
All right?
Paul?
It was really, I was really thinking the intention was to just put a sign, either a topping sign or something underneath to honor. And if our wording was improper, my apologies.
I'm just,
I really don't want to do any harm to business. That would not be a fitting honor to anybody, including Stewart.
I agree. And I think it's commendable, like I said, and I said from the beginning, I think it's a great idea. I just wanted to be sure we weren't going to negatively impact our businesses because they're having a hard enough time as it is. Alex?
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Bert?
Well, I'd just like to, I'd take offense to what Councilmember Villanueva said about us. We were just looking at what the agenda item said. We have to do our duty as city council members. The agenda item says renaming Business Parkway. There is nothing anywhere in the literature that says we're going to put a sign underneath Business Parkway to show Adair Parkway. We have to go with what the agenda item says and what literature we were given. I take offense to what I was accused of.
Noted. So,
Doesn't surprise me.
Excuse me?
You heard me.
so would you like to amend your motion to make the change from the agenda item that you submitted? And then that can be addressed and seconded and discussed?
Okay, I would like to erect a sign that reads Adair Parkway just below or above, however the City Public Works thinks it's best fitting, on over the, or under or below, above the Business Parkway sign that exists.
Okay, well, I don't believe it can be above, and it might be confusing if it's on the same street sign. Josh, do you know what the law is on that? We'd like to be able to research the Texas Transportation Code and see if there's a problem, but you could, I'm assuming, inside from the street sign and a little in from the intersection, have a separate post and a sign that says Adair Parkway. Again, it might be a little confusing since they see Business Parkway. That's why I tossed in Memorial Parkway, and people would then understand. That's just my suggestion and my idea. So,
So a separate pole sign inside?
well, what we're saying is we
Property.
need to check the Texas Transportation Code and see if there's a problem putting this on the street sign itself. And if there isn't, then we can certainly do that. But again, if we have Business Parkway and Leslie Road and then Adair Parkway, it might confuse some people, but as long as it's down on the post and it's allowed by the Texas Transportation Code, we can do that. If we can't put that on there, then we could put a separate post further in with Adair. Again, if it's a memorial, I think a Memorial Parkway, but Adair Parkway, I don't really care. But again, it's just a misunderstanding because of the way your agenda item was written. So Paul, do you want to add to that?
I'm fine with whatever the law will allow.
Okay, Alex?
I'm fine with it as well. Maybe we could make it a different color to differentiate it.
Yeah,
from original.
something that makes it look like a wreath or, something like that. Bert, anything else?
Once again, I think we need to postpone this, and if we want to do it this way, we need to check and see how to do it first, and then do it. I mean, we're just going haphazardly. We don't even know what we can really do.
The postponement would have to be a separate motion and a second, and then a vote
that's my
taken on
opinion. I
whether
mean,
to
it doesn't
postpone
sound
it.
like-
So it would be, if Ed would like to postpone it, that's fine. But I think he's looking for a decision on this, so if no one else is interested in postponing it, then we'd probably just go ahead with the action. Anybody interested in postponing? Okay. So once again, Ed, we're talking about either Adair Parkway or Adair Memorial Parkway. You can let us know. And it would be a sign that would be more like a memorial sign. And if we can put it on the existing street sign post, and there's no problem with the Texas Transportation Code, we'll certainly do that. Otherwise, we'll set a separate post just inside the intersection, and you can put your sign on that. That sound right?
Sound good?
Okay. Paul?
Yes, sir.
Is that, so your second on that is, that amendment is good?
That's good for me, yes, sir.
Okay. So again, Business Parkway is going to remain Business Parkway, and we'll have the separate sign. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. You guys have the amendment? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. There'll be a separate sign, either Adair Parkway or Adair Memorial Parkway. Josh, you're going to check the code, make sure there's no problem putting on that post. If there is, we'll figure out something else. And you're going to furnish the sign?
I'll be happy to pay for it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me.
Do
City
you all
finds
want
ways
to,
to
I
pay
mean,
for
it's
other
not that
things.
big of an issue. Do you all want to include that in the motion? Or you want Ed to furnish the sign? City furnish? Ed furnish.
I think we did the action. I think we should furnish it.
Okay, I agree.
Probably small.
It's not that big of an item,
Be
so
25 to 50.
city can take care of that. Ed, we appreciate the thought, and we all greatly respected Stuart, and this is a good action. I think it's great that the businesses will not be impacted.
Right.
Okay, and that is the last item on our agenda, so if there are no objections to our agenda being adjourned, I will adjourn. Any objections? We are adjourned, and the time is 8:33.